with disaster management. And as explained, I know there might be a couple of people who missed last session or have just joined us. But those of us who have been taking advantage of this remarkable opportunity, you will remember that it is pretty voluminous. All right. So what we're focusing on are the key principles about disaster management as a practice. The aim is for all participants at the end of the training and the sharing that you have enough knowledge, you have enough information, you have enough understanding of the practice. First of all, that you appreciate that it is a practice and that it's a professionally developed practice. And you understand that there is a lot more that you will need to avail yourself by way of information and training, so that should you decide that you're going to go down that route and explore being a practitioner in that field, you acquire the right knowledge, the right tools, and you're able to make much more of a difference in the field. All right. So this is, as we say, the introduction. So we want to promote a deeper understanding of the determinants of disasters, and everything that we've shared here is evidence-based. We're looking at different disciplines and multi-sectors they're all required to work harmoniously to efficiently and effectively manage humanitarian disasters. And those of us who have been in the training, you would realize that there's two big aspects: preparation and response. And we're going to focus later on in subsequent trainings some more about the preparation. Planning, last week we talked a lot about planning. Some people don't know about planning. They haven't had the opportunity to practice planning. You go to any other disaster management website or any other authority that has a website that gives information about, let's say, disasters, a tsunami warning page, a hurricane warning page, an earthquake preparedness page. They all tell you to make a personal plan. All right. So personal planning is one session that we'll do later on. But there is so much information available free on the international web pages. NOAA.com, NOAA. They have a lot of good information and lots of links to help you prepare yourself for hurricane and cyclone events. All right, so I encourage all of us, if we haven't already, to go to these websites. And especially if you're living in the coastal area or the Caribbean or any other island chain. If you're living in the island chain and you've never sat down and made a hurricane plan, then you really pushing divine grace principle to the extreme. Because after the last 2 years, where we had record-breaking numbers of hurricanes and tropical storms, if you have not made a personal plan yet, I don't know when you're going to, I don't know what's wrong with you, when you're going to look at doing it, how else to shake you up. Make a personal plan. All right. Likewise, personal plans for your own home. I want to take a couple of minutes to emphasize. If you don't understand the importance, lay down in your bed, blindfold yourself, and then try to reach your back door and time yourself how fast it takes to get to your back door, blindfolded. A simple exercise like that. All right. What if it's your house is on fire? God forbid. We don't want that for anybody. And you have to crawl on your hands and knees to get to your front door or your back door or the escape window that you have, let's say with a padlock on the burglar bars and stuff, that is your emergency exit. Oftentimes people live in a place, whether you built it or you're renting it, with an emergency exit, but you've never practiced and you never encouraged your family to practice getting to it from their rooms or from any other room in the house and how to exit. All right, where I live, the bedrooms are 3 stories up. We're on the 3rd floor. And to get, if either one of the staircases are blocked, to get out, there's one particular window with the burglar bars that will open out, and then you go through the window. So in our case, it's going to be a pretty scary prospect getting out, especially in a panic situation, and how you're going to get down. Using, if you live in a higher building, using a rope ladder. You don't want to practice that in a panic situation. You want to practice that before. You want to get a feel for it. You want to understand how it works, the dynamics, time yourself, how long it takes to get down using a rope ladder that's hanging on your windowsill. These are the simple things that, you know, we don't think about. But I'm letting all of us know these are important things in terms of personal crisis to prepare. And if you start at the personal level and make the preparations for yourself and your own home, you'll get a greater sense of urgency and you'll get a better understanding when you stretch out into reaching your community. All right. Now, I remember giving a presentation one time to a congregation, and there was one guy, you could tell from his body language that he didn't want to be in this presentation. So at the break, I asked him, you seem uncomfortable. What's the problem? He said, you come here to waste people's time and scare them. So I was taken aback. What do you mean scaring? He said, God will take care of all of us. So, you know, this a little bit extreme in his opinion, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I said, yes, God takes care of all of us, but he equips us with knowledge. All right. What do you mean exactly? He said, you're scaring people. You're telling people that they have to make a personal plan. I said, but, you know, I let him rant and rave a little bit. So I asked him simply, how long would he take if he were to lay down in his bed and blindfolded, if he could do the exercise to get blindfolded from his bed to his back door? So he listened, he finally listened then. So I asked him if he knew how to get out of his own doors blindfolded. So I told him, if you could get from inside your house to your street blindfolded in under 3 minutes, if you could personally guarantee that you could do that in under 3 minutes, I will stop teaching. Then is when, like, you know, thank the Lord, he had an epiphany and he had a realization and he calmed down. He wasn't my biggest fan at the end of the course, unfortunately, but at least his body language in the second half was totally different and he actually was a lot more receptive. You know, so at least we got him thinking. And I'm hoping that at the end of tonight, well, last Thursday, I had encouraged all of us to make personal plans. How many of us actually made personal plans? You can type it in the chat if you actually made any kind of personal plan, if you started making any personal plan, or if you're going to wait until May when the hurricane season is imminent to start making your personal plans. Okay? All right, so the definition of disaster response is taking appropriate measures to respond to an event. Now, one response to an event is total inaction. And it happens. Some people freeze. They just totally freeze. You know, something happens and they're just unable to do anything because this whole situation is unfolding and it's unfamiliar. It's scary. And some people get fear paralysis. It's a reality. It happens. Okay? And we have to recognize that. And when you look and when you do a little drill down, most people who get situational paralysis are the ones who have no preparation. They did not think about the event. They did not do anything to prepare themselves, and the event happens and they're not prepared for the aftermath even. Okay? So, taking appropriate measures to respond to an event, including action taken and measures planned in anticipation of sorry, I'm distracted by a young lady here who's a little bit distraught, a minor emergency. You okay? All right, go organize yourself. I'll come just. Apologies. So, and in anticipation of, during, and immediately after. In anticipation of, this one we definitely have control of. We can do a lot to prepare ourselves before an event. And we as disaster management specialists realize the more people are prepared for before an event, the easier it is for them to have an appropriate response during, and the better their chances of properly responding and survival during and after the event. All right? So preparation ensures that effects are minimized and that persons affected by the event are given immediate relief and support. And depend on the level of preparation that people make for before an event, they can support themselves to an extent. Now, I'll interject with a quick story. A very close family friend of ours, he was living in Trinidad, but he was from Grenada. His family was in Grenada. And he, just before Hurricane Ivan, he had bought and sent 3 truckloads of goods because he was building a grocery for his wife to operate in Grenada. So he sent 3 truckloads of goods via the cargo boat, and he moved everything from the port in Grenada across to Grenville. And Grenville was one of those windward towns that got hit really bad. So he had just completed a large concrete structure. So it was pretty well built. He had it, he had the windows and everything done in steel. He survived, the building itself, sorry, survived really well, and protected all the contents because he decided that if he was going to build a grocery store, it's going to be built really well and it's going to handle everything. And all this amount of goods was protected during the storm hitting the island. All right. So he had gone to the island like 3 days before the storm hit. A couple months after, he came back. Now, when I was a responder to Hurricane Ivan in the aftermath, to Grenada, sorry, in the aftermath of Ivan, I did not go to Grenville. I just stayed on the boat and the wharf, and we did our part there, offloading supplies and trying to get them out to the citizens. But when I reunited with him 2.5 months after the hurricane, when he could finally travel again, he told me he had become a millionaire. So he explained to me after the disaster, after of course, when people explain, they could not believe that was the island of Grenada that they were seeing. Everything was just knocked down, windswept, wind driven. They just could not believe what they were seeing. He said within 3 days post hurricane impact, he opened his grocery. And when he realized that people had no food, when he realized the extent of damage, how many people, their houses were destroyed or partially destroyed, the roads had them hemmed in, he ended up practically saving half of Grenville's population. And he said he intended back then to give away all his goods as a humanitarian gesture. Yet people were coming to him and putting $20 in his hand for him to make sure they got a chubby. So let that wrap around your head. A soft drink, a soda, had reached the price of $20 and up. And he said, I didn't want to take the money, but when people were putting it in my hand, I couldn't be a fool to let it go. But he told me he gave away practically half of the goods. He gave it away freely. And then when people came to him to make sure that he secured more stuff for them, they brought so much money to make sure. He told me he sold a 25-pound of flour for 600 US because the person was willing to pay that, not because he wanted to sell it for that price. All right, now I know the guy, he's a personal friend of the family, and I knew he wouldn't lie about things like that, and I knew his generous nature. So, listening to the story and how he described how he became a millionaire just by the goods in his hand, astronomically appreciating in price. It's a story that always stayed with me every time I did further trainings and educated myself or responded to any disaster, and I've seen it happen. So when I started working at Texaco, and I was leader of the Latin American Rapid Response team, I may have shared it with you before, where I had a duffel bag at home that I could snatch whenever Texaco deployed me, that had 250,000 US dollars in it, wrapped in small waterproof packages. And when I get to the area that I would respond, that money was for ensuring Texaco's assets were protected, including making sure that its employees had their salaries for the next couple of months guaranteed in cash. Now, Texaco is one of the very few entities that would have thought so far. All right. Grenada did not have banking post hurricane for 4 months. They did not have power for 28 days. It took 19 days to reopen the airport. It took 7 days to properly reopen the wharf. After a hurricane in St. Martin, it took 3 months to restore pipe-borne water because the damages to the main power plant was so bad. It took more than 3 months to restart. And people used to line up for 5 gallons of water ration a day. All right, now that was way back in the early 2000s. Now, preparation is important because we do not know the extent of a disaster. We don't know the extent of the damage that can occur. But coordinated planning, because countries have lived through, or the people have survived, they've suffered the trauma of living in post-disaster situations. Other countries have realized that, I don't want my citizens to suffer like that. I have to prepare. And that was one of the impetus for these laws being passed globally across every country that set the framework that we described in the last 2 sessions and made different levels of planning, national, district, and local government level plans, made it mandatory. Okay, so there are people who found jobs and they were trained subsequently to do this kind of planning, to be responsible for assets that were placed in their care, and to make sure that they help their job is to help disseminate information before an event and to coordinate the response after an event. So there are professional careers for trained people. But I must tell you, it is not for everybody. It is not for everybody. All right? So, disaster response and disaster recovery, key components of disaster operations. Now, the operations are separate from the preparation. Preparation, I've heard it say that you can never be too prepared. And to an extent, it's true. Simply because you do not know how bad the event is going to be. Whatever the event you've prepared for, you don't know how bad it's going to be. All right. And when I remember the tsunami, that everybody knows that event, right? Because of mainstream media, a lot of people call it the tsunami that destroyed Banda Aceh. They know some of the response countries. Some people call it the Indonesian tsunami or the post-Indonesian quake tsunami. Different names people have for that one event, because the damage was just so widespread. Just so widespread, it was unprecedented. All right. Subsequent to that, now there have been a lot of warnings and preparations and stores laid up. And then afterwards, we had the tsunami that hit Japan, right? Which was much more recent. And we saw what happened to Japan. Japan had defenses. They had sea defenses. And the sea defenses were built to withstand or to prevent the damage of a certain level of event. Yet you had an event occur that surpassed the defenses and what they were built for. But imagine if the defenses were not there and the shoreline felt the full brunt of a natural force that did not have a deterrent in front of it. How much more would the damages have been? And I deliberately didn't show any of the disaster footage in my preparation, because we could find it all on YouTube channels, and you Google search, you Bing search, you could find pictures There's movies been made of it, you know. So if you want to see the extent of the damage from a quantitative point of view, there's lots of footage that can show you how bad it was. There's lots of footage also, it's just not as popular, of how people survived or barely survived or even didn't survive these events. All right. The correlation between disaster response and recovery phases, levels of activation, and stages of operation are illustrated in this little diagram. So disaster response, local governments are primarily responsible for responding to disaster events in their local government agency, with district and state levels providing resources and support. All right, that's the response, the definition of response. Who leads the response? How response is supposed to be organized. And as we shared last week, a lot of people, we do not want to see fellow humans suffering, and we will reach out to help. But it's easy for the help to arrive and cause a scene of chaos and confusion. We don't want that. Okay? We don't want personality clashes. We don't want problems. We don't want people going to take advantage of other people's misfortune. It happened, it will happen again. And structures, especially those mandated by governments, when I say structures, I mean organizational structures. They are designed to help mitigate against those that would prey on the victims. The need for recovery may arise from a range of disaster events, including natural and non-natural disasters, floods, cyclones, bushfires, terrorism, major health emergencies, as well as animal and plant diseases. All right. So there's multitude stories that we can talk about the ills of a poor response. But those of us who hear, listening to this, we will not be part and parcel of a poor response. Because after this, we expect that you would make, if you so desire, of course, that you would make known to yourself the local plan, your community plan. You have to go research. I would not know what the plans in Dominica are for the next hurricane, or the plans in St. Lucia or Bahamas or Cayman Islands, what the plans are to face the next hurricane. These places probably just finished rebuilding and reacting to the last major natural disaster. All right. And we would like to think that it's one and it's done, but that's not the case. We have to be prepared for multiple events. All right. And preparation and withstanding multiple events is what we call resilience. The aim of all this that we're sharing and all the activities and all the information that you will avail yourself of builds resilience in your community, in your local area, in your township, in your district, and in your nation. All right. Resilience is an important and a desired trait. Activations and triggers of response arrangements. Local governments are primarily responsible for managing events in their area. The early and preemptive activation of support and resources from district and state level ensures an integrated, active, and effective response to any disaster affected community. All right. This is especially relevant for hazard-specific arrangements and large-scale disasters. a large-scale disaster will overwhelm local resources. So in Trinidad, on the outskirts of the capital city, there's a popular area called Diego Martin. Diego Martin is two parallel valleys leading into a large floodplain, and this is on the west of Port of Spain. Because of the scenery and the proximity to Port of Spain, it became a major urban population center. And there's some nice communities in the area, nice developments and such, but it was so prone, being on the west of the island, it was prone to convection rains, prone, of course, to rainy season, torrential downpours, and flooding. And in one year, there were two major flood events, not storms. We didn't suffer any tropical storm. We just went through a lot of rain. Not much wind, but plenty rain in that particular part. And the flooding damage, the landslides that were caused, the impassable roads, house damage. Fortunately, we didn't have any deaths. We did have a few injuries, but the property damage, the losses, the financial cost was immense. All right, so we had first of all, the first event and the response. Contractors, people, everybody was told via national media, if you desire to respond to assist in the cleanup and recovery, you have to report first to the DMU. So that was made abundantly clear. And there was coordination because of prior planning. There was coordination, and the police knew what they were looking for in terms of what their role was in the post-event surveys. Fire services were providing the rescue coordinated with the armed forces, which is what we call our regiment, Trinidad and Tobago Regiment. The Coast Guard was not involved because it wasn't a coastal area event. But we have an what we call an air cadet aviation unit, and they flew some helicopter sorties coordinating and sharing information where they saw damages, or if they saw people marooned, or they saw people in distress. But everything was coordinated, not only from the Office of Disaster Management and Preparedness, which was some 40 miles away. That center was like 40 miles away from where the event occurred. But the flow of information to the DMU, where what we call the hot zone, the staging area next to the hot zone, everybody knew to go there, and they would be directed when you drove in or you walked in, you would be directed who to report to. You present your ID, they take a note, and they find out from you what you can do, and they tell you what they want done. They match you to a role. They tell you when they expect you to be completed and expect the report back from you. All right. So it was from my participation, when I took my team there, we worked together with the fire services, and I thought that response was one of the best that I saw in Trinidad. All right. We worked for 3 days. Because records were kept, we were contacted subsequently and told that we would be, if we were desirous, they would like to give us a stipend for the days that we worked in the response. Now, not every government is going to be that generous. All right. My team essentially declined. We were happy to be of service to help the community at large. Not that it was just, we didn't think that we needed a financial reward. But the response was so well coordinated that they even had records to contact us subsequently and offer to pay us something for our time and efforts. Now, I'm not saying that you have to have that in your response plans. I don't know your budget, but different levels of affluence, different countries may be able to afford that. It's a good thing in that, people don't expect it, and it positively reinforces in their mind that, if you come out to volunteer to help restore and respond, somebody remembers, so it positively reinforces that your response is appreciated. Now, activating disaster management arrangements, including the disaster management groups and or coordination centers, depend on many factors, including the perceived level of impact to the community. Now, you've seen it in the movies where people have different operational stages, and in the American mainstream movie media, DEFCON 1, DEFCON 2, DEFCON 3, as military response to perceived threats. All right, you all heard the jargon in movies. Let's get to DEFCON 1. But in the in similar manner, we have different levels of readiness for different actions, okay? Based on the perceived level of impact to the community. Activation of response arrangements should occur in accordance with the activation processes detailed in your relevant plan. So, activation of the local response. This has to be timely. You don't want to activate this thing too late, or you mobilize resources before the event finished happening. All right. For example, if the downpour, if the storm is still raging, you wouldn't want to try to have people contacted to come out during the storm. All right. Depend on the length of the disaster in terms of the time frame. You need people to shelter in place after the event has occurred, then people will respond. Okay? The decision to activate the event depends on several factors. So in the Australian context, they would have somebody who's responsible for activating the disaster management group. In the Trinidadian context, the duty officer, based on the information that he's receiving at the ODPM office, will give notification to the Minister of National Security, and the Minister of National Security would initiate based on the triggers, and triggers would be the information that he's receiving. He would give the command to activate. And then that rolls out, that cascades the whole process of the activation of state, district, and local plans. All right, so let's suppose that in the town where I live, in Marabella, I'm the person who's been elected as the chairman of the local organizing action group. And we have a flood that is occurring. It's raining cats, dogs, and other small furry animals. And we know there's gonna be some people in trouble. And it's raining, it's flooding. We give some reports. We call the ODPM to let them know we're experiencing this level in our area, all right, we don't want to send out a false alert. So local groups have to be careful that they don't send out false alert. You will send notification based on factual information that you're receiving. Neighbors are calling other neighbors, they're sharing, they're letting us know that flooding is taking part in, let's say, X street. Flooding is now on the roadway. It's now a foot on the roadway at 9 o'clock. At 10 o'clock, it's 2 feet on the roadway. At 11 o'clock, we have people in danger of being swept away from their homes. This is when we relay the information to the ODPM call desk, and we let them know we have live information that we're receiving from people who are in danger. All right, so they would have, based on, by 9 o'clock, based on the amount of rain that's been falling, they would have notified response groups that we have a situation occurring in X area. All right, in Marbella area, X street is undergoing some hardships because of the rain. So agencies would have been notified. The plan is now activated. And based on information, when we relay to them, telling them, the ODPM, look, there's people going to need help. We have people in trouble. They deploy the resources, right? The closest fire station is contacted, the closest police station is contacted, and officers respond. Rescue crews respond. They know where they're going to. All right? Based on local knowledge, we might specify a route for them. We have a shelter manager starts activating the shelter. If we have relief supplies, they start checking the relief supplies and relaying back to me, the local coordinator. All right, so I'm keeping a full record of what's going on. All the information I'm receiving, I'm entering in a log. Of course, I had my log paper prepared because I have that rule. All right, so I'm writing down information. 9:15, this is what I received. 10:15, this is the call I received from so and so, about so and so. All right, and keeping accurate records is important, that you can go back. And this is where I'll put in the plug again. The NIMS ICS training is transferable to any situation, any disaster. And then some of the practices in the NIMS ICS, all right, and the way the forms have been designed, anybody can keep records, right? Any responding person can keep records. Hazard-specific activation. Where a disaster event requires activation of hazard-specific arrangements based on the lead agency's legislative or technical capability and authority. There's broader disaster management arrangements that may be activated to provide coordinated support. Okay, electricity emergency, dam safety incident, etc. In Suriname, they have an immense hydro dam that was built to provide electricity for a smelter. At one time, this aluminum smelter was the largest in the world. It belonged to Alcoa World Alumina, a US-based company. They have records that 76% of all World War II aircraft was built on Suriname alumina. All right, the aluminum came from mines in Suriname. This hydro dam created a lake that is over 1,700 square miles big, with an average depth of 150 feet. That is a lot of fresh water. Every year, there's a survey on the structure of this dam every single year, even though it's built into major rock and it's been rated as one of the safest built dams in the world because it's built, plenty concrete onto rock, bedrock. They still do surveys. They use ground penetrating radar. They do a lot of repair work. They do a lot of work on this dam, simply because 90% of the Surinamese population lives downstream of this dam. All right, Suriname has one major city and 3 other large towns. But the city has 600,000 people. All right. So in planning and scoping and looking at potential scenarios for disaster, if this dam were to suffer catastrophic failure, even the airport would be flooded out. Right? Not to mention entire riverbank communities will be totally swept away into the ocean, which is something like 130 miles away. Right? The mouth of the river, the distance from the dam to the mouth of the river is 130 miles away. And if the dam were to suffer catastrophic failure, there's 500,000 people at least that would be obliterated. Okay? So Suriname has a plan for partial failure of each one of the sluice gates that what they call the spillway. Now, natural rainfall would raise the level of water in the dam. The dam drains the lake, and draining the lake is what produces hydroelectricity through the dynamos. But even if they were to run all the dynamos or open those gates, it would cause the river that's downstream, the river level, to raise. So they have to plan based on the local runoff levels as well as the tides. They have to be paying constant attention to how the water runs off of this lake. All right, so it's a 24-hour exercise because we're talking a watershed that is more than 4,000 square miles big. So it could be very dry where I'm at, but someplace else it's raining. And that runoff water is affecting the level in the lake. And the water level in the lake would affect the water level in the river. All right. So at the dam, they have their flood coordination center. And I've worked with these guys. All right. And they have hazard specific arrangements, not only for the integrity of the dam itself, but for water management. Okay. And that's been going on for since when Alcoa was in their heyday. Likewise, in Trinidad, we have mapped out all our major floodplains that could be affected by flooding. And we have now, with the advent of technology and better information flow, we now know how much rainfall would produce how much flooding. So together with the meteorological office, we know we have hazard specific activation plans. What that simply means, if we're having a certain amount of rain, we go to readiness level 1, what we call green alert. We have 4 levels: green, blue, yellow, orange. All right, and then red is where we actually have a large-scale disaster. So my bad, it's 5 levels. Green and blue is normal operations. All right, yellow level is where we have a lot of people being notified. Orange is where people are deployed. And red is when we have a full-scale disaster. All right, declaration of a disaster situation. Under the Australian system, it gives legislative authority for declaring a disaster situation or notice of declaration, duration, extension, and ending. Okay, so under the law, it's going to specify in your country who's responsible to declare a disaster situation, who gives notice for the declaration, who's responsible for the duration, depend on the event and the subsequent post-event activities to extend and then ending the disaster situation. When you say we no longer have a disaster situation because we have responded, we have accounted for people and people have received aid and they're ready to get back to life as normal. Okay, so those powers are given to nominated officers to make those declarations. And of course, that declaration will be shared on mainstream media and communicated to the wider public. All right. Simply, this means for those in the US, the governor calls out in the National Guard, or a state of emergency has been declared for Georgia, Miami, Tampa, the whole state of Florida. You know, you've all heard it in the news, but now you have a better appreciation what it means. A disaster situation will normally only be declared by the legally appointed official when it's necessary to exercise those additional powers to prevent or minimize loss of life, injury and illness, property loss or damage, and damage to the environment. Okay, so we do not have to declare a disaster situation to activate disaster management arrangements or to obtain financial assistance by established disaster relief schemes. Okay, the damages could be localized and the local governing authority would be able to give a full account that says there are only 5 homes affected and they are in need of relief. And that activates disaster arrangements to take relief to those 5 families. But the wider community was not affected, and you don't need a declaration of a disaster situation to give a pinpointed relief effort or response to a small portion of the community. Okay, so you can have a small response under the arrangements of the disaster management group that doesn't require declaration of a disaster situation. All right, now there's a link here that you can get examples in the Australian government system. All right, this information is freely available that you can look at it. So if your country does not have, or if you think by your involvement, they need revamping and evolution and improvement, one example is the Australian system. And that's the link there that you can get more information. All right. There's other countries that have advanced systems. Canada is one. The US, of course. Chile, right? Or Chile, as the Latinos pronounce it. They have a very well-established disaster management and response framework. All right, because they have everything. They have flooding, they have they have mining disasters, they have avalanches, they have rock slides, landslides, earthquakes, storms, tornadoes, wildfires. They've even had locust swarms. Chile is an exciting place. All right, communication systems and systems for public information and warning. Public information during the response phase. Now, you know, there's some people, when an event is occurring, they're glued to the TV. You know, for example, if like for the disaster, that the hurricane that hit Puerto Rico, there were some people that were just glued to the TV, listening for information to hear what's going on, what's happening. Okay. Now, public information during the response phase of a disaster management operation is designed to give the community awareness of hazards and information about events and recommended actions. For example, local evacuation arrangements and specific measures for vulnerable groups. However, we have a deficiency with this whole paragraph here. Take, for instance, if I'm in Marabella and the whole of Marabella has been hit by a flood and it knocked out power. How am I going to get the information? I don't have TV anymore because there's no power. I'm marooned in my house. I don't have cell phone coverage. You know, there's no information. How do I get public information? Well, the disaster management team can't pinpoint information and stream it directly to me. They can't. So they have to rely on broadcasts of the right information and then transfer of that information by word of mouth so that residents know how to respond. Okay, so an area is hit and we have certain arrangements in place, but not everybody in the affected area can avail themselves of public information, right? We don't have radios, we don't have TV. How do we know what to do? This is where word of mouth comes in. If we broadcast information to the public, everybody around the affected area would avail themselves of the information. So it's important that we give the right information at the right time and it reaches everybody. And then they communicate that down on the road level. All right. Traditional media is used for public information in most events. However, there's also social media, local warning systems, websites, and other channels to provide information to stakeholders and the community. And a simple thing as driving by with a megaphone and letting people know what to do, what is coming, what is happening, where they need to make their way to. All right. In the last floods that we had here in Trinidad, somebody actually going around in a high truck that could go through the water and telling people what's coming, what's happening. A lot of people post-disaster said that was one of the most important things that, you know, they got that comfort level that somebody's aware, that somebody's trying to reach them with supplies. You know, they did not feel isolated. People felt reassured when they heard that, you know, somebody's coming and trying to help. Some relief is on the way. Now, for weather events, the Meteorological Office is responsible for issuing meteorological warnings, such as severe weather warnings, tropical cyclone advice, tsunami warnings, etc. All right, so local governments must monitor these messages and make sure that you're situationally aware. Notification and dissemination of information and warnings does not rely on activation of disaster management group, but they should be automatic responsibility of the agency, regardless of whichever local group or whatever they're doing. All right, so it puts, what is basically say that at the national level, those agencies that are responsible to monitor have to report in a timely manner. All right, now there's a lot of standard emergency warning signal systems from the movies. Everybody has seen some disaster movie with the bomb siren. Where everybody's running helter skelter and you hear the siren. Oh, everybody's seen that kind of movie. We don't have none of that in Trinidad. Only in industrial establishments we have that kind of klaxon warning. And some fence line communities can hear it. Okay? But generally, most communities in the Caribbean, we don't have that.
Dr. Damian?
Sure.
All right, so we're at 7:22. I think we're gonna have to carry it on to next week, right?
Not a problem. All right, let me just check this. Right, for example, right. So next week we'll start on evacuation procedures. All right. If everybody's okay with that, let me just check the chat here, make sure that I respond to what's been shared in the chat. All right, so I see some people have been planning. That's great. Thanks for that positive feedback. All right. I commend you on starting the planning process for your family and encourage you when you finish the plan. I mean, there's no perfect plan, but having part of a plan is better than having no plan. So I will encourage you to reach out to us. We can help you. We can direct you to other resources. If you need to make a fire plan, a hurricane plan, well, fire plans and fire emergencies, your fire prevention unit of your local fire service or fire department, part of their role is to share this information and help families and communities prepare. All right, they do go out to schools, they do go out to groups and communities and give information, they share information. Fire services in Trinidad also gives basic first aid demonstrations, not training, first aid demonstrations. All right, they have their dummies and that kind of stuff that they bring, and they allow community groups to get some hands-on, and they, as emergency responders, they help you with a little bit of practice and coach you with some do's and don'ts and reinforce to you how to call for help. So they do that. Almost every fire department I know is able to do that, and they actively do that. So if you have not, take advantage of it. They'd be happy to come out to your church youth group or even to your church choir practice and just do a half hour or an hour and share information and help your communities and your congregations to prepare. And they're experts in that kind of thing.
All right, Dr. Damian. So we'll continue from there on Thursday.
No. Yeah.
I would like to ask everyone if you can unmute just so we can say hello real quick. Just want to acknowledge the fact that right now, I believe we have like 10 countries on. We have Dr. Steele and his group in London. We have Dr. Nichols in Barbados with his group. We have Dr. Levine, Cayman Island. We also have Dominican Republic by a very close friend of mine, Pastor Andrea Fernandez. Pastor Andrea, just saying hello to you. She just came on.
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you. Fine.
All right. And Kingdom Life Ministries, are you there?
Yes, we are here. Pleasant good night to everyone.
Where are you from, Pastor?
We are from Trinidad, in South Trinidad, San Fernando.
South Trinidad. Okay.
Yeah.
And you
That
came
is
with
yes,
whom?
that is with Bishop.
Okay, Bishop Lamont.
Yes, that's right. Bishop
Okay,
Lamont.
great. All right. We have the many chiefs here in the US and different parts of the United States. We also have St. Vincent, the Grenadines. We have Jamaica. And we also have Dr. Confident, which represents Haiti.
Thank you.
Dr. Confident, how are you?
I am blessed. Thank you for having me.
Good, good. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm trying to soak it in.
Dr. Confident, thank you so much. He's a medical doctor. He's very, very busy all the time, but he makes the time to be with us. He's also a pastor and a very close dear friend.
Thank you very much. Thank you for everything you do, because I wouldn't know what to do until now.
Well, we will extend that, Dr. Confident. We will.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Damian, thank you so much for your teaching. We want to really say thank you so much. It's going great. We're
You're
all
most
enjoying
welcome.
it.
I'm
People
so
are
happy to
beginning to
share.
plan.
Exactly.
People are
If we
beginning
got
to plan.
36 people here making plans, that's by extension, that's more than 100 lives affected.
Yes.
All right,
And then
so we made a difference.
we have the many chiefs that's represented from different tribes here in the US, the Aboriginal tribes. We thank you so much for everyone for coming on and taking the time to collaborate in such a great effort, saving lives on a humanitarian basis where every soul matters, every person matters. All right.
Amen.
So we're going to spend a few minutes just collaborating and fellowshipping. But before we do that, we just want to close in a word of prayer. I'm going to ask Dr. Steele, can you just close us out in prayer? Thank you.
Father, we thank you so very much, Dr. KALLOO. Thank you so very much for the teaching today. Well done. Let us pray. God, we thank you so very much for your presence in our midst. Thank you for every single person represented, every community, every tribe, every tongue, every nation that's represented in our midst. We ask your divine blessing on them, their communities, their families, and loved ones. And Father, we ask that as you have imparted this wisdom to us, may this wisdom take us and cause lives to be saved, cause others, oh God, to be equipped and protected and made aware. And as we go forward, I ask, Father, that you would continue to bless the work of Dr. KALLOO and all of his endeavors with your favor and his team, Ferdinand Nichols and all the others that are on the team. Thank you so very much for their efforts. We ask these things in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Amen.
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 Before people start getting off, I just want to say for the remaining sessions, I believe we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more sessions to go. It's the same link, although I resend it again. It's the same link that we used to get on every time. Okay. And please don't forget to text me your information for registration, because when people attend, Sister Andrea, Pastor Andrea, I will call you and discuss this with you tomorrow, okay? Everyone else, please, the link is identically the same for the remaining of this training, the next 5 sessions.
Very good.
All right, so I will ask everyone if you can put your cameras back on. Let's just say hello to everyone. So just to just share a thought here again, just for some of the people who came in after. We are conducting these training in a global peace effort to help save lives and to form a collaboration of building global peace. Our organization is the Academy of Universal Global Peace, USA. We are intergovernmental under the United Nations and the European Union. All the training that we conduct, we do issue certificates and certification for. We have already completed the chaplaincy training. We've conducted a session of leadership. Right now, we're in the process of doing the disaster management. And we're going to start the global peace training. I believe it's going to start on the 15th. We're going to have 4 sessions on global peace. It's going to be very extensive. I think everybody's having fun so far. So we thank you for your efforts and your time. Chief, big up. Okay.
Good night, everybody from London. God bless, and I'll see you guys on Thursday. Good night and God bless.
Dr.
There we
Steve, thank
go.
you.
There
Good
we
night
go.
to you.
I'm alive now. I'm alive now.
Oh, there you go.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, I want to say thank you. And definitely, if anyone does not have their application or anything for these classes, please get in contact with me, and I will make sure that you have it. So that way we can get this information over to KIWI so he can get his paperwork done. He's ready to get his stuff done inside as well. And I appreciate all of you for taking time out and really enduring this information, because even though all of us are from different totems, different religions, different cultures, us coming together like this is a very priceless moment. And I say for all of us, because we're going to do something great together. And thank you, KIWI, and thank you, Dr. Steele, and all of you guys for having us on these lines. I appreciate you all.
That's beautiful.
Awesome. All right. Any questions?
Dr. P,
Yes.
could I request a call from you as well tomorrow, please?
Sure. Do you have my number, Dr. Sims?
No, I don't have any contact for you.
All right. And just so everyone knows, it's totally okay for you to contact me. If you don't have my numbers, just feel free to speak with Dr. Sims. I'm going to send you my number now.
Okay.
I'm just going to put it up on the group so everybody can see my number.
Thank you.
All right, I am on WhatsApp, so feel free to contact me if you need to. I have no issues with that. And at the beginning of this conference, we talked about accessibility. I'm not here for any other reason other than to help serve and to build. And that's what I'm about. There's nothing super mighty about anyone. besides the fact that we should be helping and serving each other.
Amen.
All right.
Thanks much, man.
So feel free if you want to reach out to me for any reason, no problem at all.
You're doing a great job, Dr. KALLOO. God bless you.
Thank you,
Always.
Dr. Confident. Mr.
All
Esther,
right.
thank you for coming on.
Oh, I have to be part of this. You never know when I can make a difference. So I'm going to have to take the time to share it with the people in Haiti, in government,
Yes,
so
and
they can
we will
be.
talk about that, Dr. Confident. We will extend that greatly to you, as you know.
Okay.
Definitely will.
Thank you.
Sister Duff, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you for taking the time to be here.
Oh, I wouldn't be anywhere else at this time. This information is incredible. Dr. Damian was extremely informative.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Marriott Ram, thank you for coming on. We know that it's very late for you with Dr. Steele from London. It's late for you guys, and it's admirable that you're up after 12 o'clock just to be here. Thank you so much. And that little
Dr.
dog
KALLOO.
on there, huh?
Chief
All the
Emmanuel, Chief Lindega, I see you. I see you. Peace and love to you.
Yeah, you saw me. Yeah, Dr. KALLOO, thank. Yeah, Chief, big up. Thank you so much, man, for bringing me into this. Dr. KALLOO, Dr. Damian.
Yes.
I just love this program. You know, I'm an all hazards position specific incident commander. So I have done most of these FEMA courses. I've done incident command, and Dr. Damian is just on point. And I love this program because faith-based. We are training leaders, right? Chiefs and pastors. And I went to a few disasters so far, Katrina and Irma. Okay, I was one of the leaders over there. And what we see is most people need chaplains. They need pastors. Okay. And so when you train these leaders, these programs go far. You're not just training individuals, because these are the guys who are making decisions. So this program is awesome. And you see, in emergency preparedness, once you take it, it allows you to take matters into your own hands. You take responsibility for your own safety.
Yes.
You ensure the best possible outcome, right? So this is it. You know, you are reducing fear and anxiety, and then you are reducing loss of life and property. So this program is just awesome, and I would recommend it to everybody. So I appreciate you for this program. I'm proud to be part of it.
Thank you so much, Chief.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Just so everybody knows, we did not advertise this program. This was just specifically done, you know, a very small handful. I did not even put it up on my own Facebook. But after we complete this program in the next 5 sessions, we will continue on with different trainings, and we will make it available to everyone. So, you know, it's highly appreciated for everybody taking the making the effort.
Thank you.
Anybody else have anything to share before we close out?
As always, Dr. KALLOO, greetings from the Cayman Islands. Very, very best beneficial training. And outside, obviously, of the peace ambassadorial or the peace training, which I think you said will come next week or the following week, I think, or I rather know that the disaster management training is extremely critical. I know critical globally, but especially critical for Caribbean islands. And I'm so grateful for Dr. Damian for once again presenting such a high level of knowledge, training, and expertise. Thank you, and God bless you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ian. I just want to share a little thought with you. We have one of our peace ambassadors in Trinidad, and he have our credentials. He traveled to London a couple months ago and was caught up with the crowd trying to get back home. The flight was full and he did not want to miss his flight. So he thought to himself, maybe I should go and just talk to the security and ask him if they can help me to get on this flight, because he didn't want to miss his flight. He went to the security and he showed him his ID, his peace ambassador's ID, and said to him, sir, if it's possible, can you help me to just get up, not to miss this flight? And the officer said, can I have your ID? He took the ID and he said to him, I need you to stand and wait right here, don't move. He said he got pretty scared because he thought he had done something. Now he was going to be arrested. The police officer came back to him and said, I need you to follow me. Sir, I need you to follow me. So he took him straight up to the plane, introduced him to the pilot, and they put him into first class. And he said even up to that point, he wasn't sure as to what was happening. So he saw the pilot, and the pilot came to him and said, okay, sir. He said, yes. So he said, the pilot showed him a light on the plane and told him that he was apologizing to the pilot. And the pilot says, you have no reason to apologize. Do you see that light there? This entire flight has now become a diplomatic flight because of the fact that you're on board this plane. I'm saying that to share a thought with you. You know, the credentials that we provide, they are serious credentials, and I believe the upcoming training for the global peace ambassadors, for people that's involved in peace building and having to travel, you can use your credentials as you travel, but it cannot be misused by any means. It does not make you a police officer or law enforcement. It gives you lots of credibility. They will take you very seriously. I've been pulled over by police when they're doing different things, and you know, it serves its purpose. But we above everybody else need to abide by the parameters of the law. I had one gentleman who is a chaplain at one time, pulled out his badge and pulled over a guy who was driving crazy in front of him. You know, those kinds of stuff we cannot do. We just don't do. Our peace ambassador, I'll just hold it here just to show, but that's what our badges look like. And we have, you know, that's just one of our badge, and the other one is this one right here. If you can see that. But our badges carry our registration for the United Nations. So everything is very easy to check and it's legit. We just want people to abide by the law and do the right thing. I think that we've had the chaplaincy training and we're gonna have the peace ambassadors training, which is gonna be equally important. And you're gonna hear that we're talking a heck of a lot about serving our community and serving people and building each other, not breaking them down. So that's the goal, that's our purpose, it's who we are, it's what we're about. And we're just happy to have you. So many people from different backgrounds. We're a bunch of crazy people, you know that? We're doing something that most people don't care to do.
Because we have Jesus in our lives.
Yes. Yes.
And your Excellency, Dr. KALLOO, I think it was very, very pertinent for you to speak briefly as you did relative to the credentials. Credentials meaning the badge and the ID, as it allows persons to know exactly what it is, and it validates the credibility of the organization and the designations which we are carrying. But also equally, as you say, that it's not a credential to be misused and abused. And I think I'm probably preempting what I'm saying, but I also want to add here as a member of your organization that, and you can probably elaborate on this so that we can all be on the same page, that there are in essence consequences for anyone who abuses your credentials. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's one of the reasons why everybody needs to fill out the forms who will be getting credentials. We want to make sure everybody understands the value and the purpose of the credentials. It does get you recognition. Our peace ambassadors credentials would get you in to speak with governments. They will take notice of who you are. Our IDs was approved, recognized, and authorized by the United Nations directly. So let's just say you go into a country and something is happening that has to do with humanitarian, you can simply walk up, show them your ID, let them know you're a peace ambassador, and they will entertain you. I remember a couple of years ago, I went to Trinidad. One of my family got killed. I went to the police station, sitting outside, and there was absolutely nobody responding. And then I stood up, I showed them my ID. Within 3 seconds, I was inside speaking to the senior superintendent of police. Now they realize there's somebody that, I'm somebody that's connected to somebody, and that it would be very miserable for them if they don't respond to that. Being a peace ambassador under us means that you have the ability to write a letter that we would present to the United Nations if we see abuse, human abuse in any form or fashion. So it does give you a lot of leadway. We are not, they don't dictate to us where to go and what to do, as long as we follow the humanitarian laws. We do support the Sustainable Development Goals because it works. Anyway, it's getting late. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you again. Have a pleasant night.
Thank you.
God
Peace
bless.
and love. Peace and love.
Thank you.
All
Thanks.
right.
Peace and love to everybody, Dr. KALLOO and Dr. Damian. Big up Healing Water and all the other chiefs, pastors, everybody.
Good
It
night.
was
Thank
a
you again.
All right.
Thank you
Have a
again,
blessed night.
Governor General Dr.
pleasure.
KALLOO. Thank you very much.
Bye. Thank you so much. Bye.
Peace,
Thank
love,
you.
light.
God bless you. Good
Bye.
night. Oh,
Take
thank
care.
you. Good night.
Blessings.
Good night.
Okay.